week 22 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked to add this week. The first guy is Jonathan VR of the New York Mets. Jonathan VR, in my opinion, he's had a great season for this New York Met team, especially a guy who started the year on the bench and banged up as well, but this season 18 home runs, 39 RBIs, 55 runs scored, 11 stolen bases, a 268 average, and a 340 on base in the last couple weeks here for VR. 3 homers, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, 10 runs scored, an awesome 463 average, and a 522 on base. So right here, in my opinion, Jonathan VR has been a better signing and move for the New York Mets than Francisco Lindor this season. It seems like he's hit a lot of big home runs when needed here in clutch situations for the Mets. He obviously could play pretty much all over the infield at second, third, and shortstop. And right now, he's the table setter and catalyst for this Met team that actually have won the last 7 out of 8 ball games here. Even though they've been beaten up on bad teams, he's definitely getting the job done and helping this team trying to get back in the race here in the NL East. And he's definitely valuable for fantasy owners at this time. There's no way they're going to be benching him, and he's going to have a position and play every day. So the last few games here for VR, August 28th versus the Nationals, 2 for 4. August 29th versus Washington, 3 for 5. A home and 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. August 31st versus Miami, 1 for 3. September 2nd versus Miami, 1 for 4 with a homer and an RBI. September 3rd at Washington, 4 for 6 with an RBI. September 4th in a doubleheader at Washington, 3 for 7, 3 runs, a homer, and a stolen base. And September 5th at Washington, 2 for 6 with a homer and 2 runs scored. So right here, he's getting the job done. He's the table setter for this team. And I think he can help fantasy owners in a big way. He's stealing bases. He's hitting for average now. And he's definitely showing power as well. The next hitter, Candelario of the Detroit Tigers. So Candelario, he's had a pretty decent season for a guy who no one expected much out of, especially in fantasy baseball circles. On the season, 12 home runs, 55 RBIs, 67 runs scored, a 280 average, and a 357 on base in the last couple weeks here for Candelario. 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 340 average, and a 392 on base. So right now, he's going out there, and he's definitely getting the job done here for this Detroit Tiger team. And he's a player available still, is Candelario, in 69% of fantasy leagues. But this week, he's really tearing things up. August 31st versus Oakland, 1 for 4. September 1st versus Oakland, 1 for 3 with a run. September 2nd versus Oakland, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs. September 3rd at Cincinnati, 4 for 5, 4 runs, a homer, 2 RBIs. September 4th at Cincy, 0 for 3. And September 5th at Cincy, 2 for 3 with a run and 2 RBIs. So right now, him and the Detroit Tigers have a series at the Pittsburgh Pirates. Another poor pitching team where I think Candelario could definitely take advantage of it. And this guy's got some versatility for fantasy baseball owners as well, qualifying at first and third base. So right now, if you need any of those positions or just a utility hitter in general, I think it's a good ad to go out there and get Candelario. He's starting each and every day for this Tiger team, and he's been a pretty productive hitter for pretty much the whole season. The next hit is Frank Schwindel of the Chicago Cubs. So I mentioned Schwindel a few weeks in a row now on this waiver wire, but he's still out there in 40% of fantasy leagues, and this guy's been one of the hottest hitters in the last month of the season here for fantasy baseball. On the season for Schwindel, 11 homers, 32 RBIs, 24 runs scored, a 338 average, and a 383 on base. So he's done a lot of damage here for this Cub team in only 140 at-bats this season. In the last couple weeks here for Schwindel, 6 homers, 14 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 380 average, and a 426 on base. So in the last 2 weeks here, he's ranked 6th overall in fantasy baseball. And this guy, he's pretty much been a journeyman throughout his career, but right now he's found a home maybe with this Cub team. And the Cubs, we knew they traded everyone and gutted their roster at the MLB trade deadline, and guys like Schwindel have come out of nowhere and producing, and a guy who obviously deserves a spot, in my opinion, on this Cub team next season. So the last few games here for Schwindel, August 31st at the Twins, 1 for 4 with a homer and an RBI. September 1st in Minnesota, 1 for 4, a homer, 3 RBIs. September 2nd versus Pittsburgh, 1 for 5 with a run. September 3rd versus Pittsburgh, 3 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs. September 4th versus Pittsburgh, 3 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs. And September 5th versus Pittsburgh, 3 for 4, a homer, 4 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. So Schwindel right now, he's on an amazing run right here with 6 home runs in his last 7 games. And I don't think this guy's going to slow down anytime soon, just the way he's been doing it right now. And he's also a guy with some versatility who qualifies at first and outfielder. And right now, like I mentioned, he's only available in 40% of fantasy leagues. But if you need a big bat here, especially in the first round of your playoff, Schwindel's definitely a guy who would go out there to the free agent pool and add this week. The next hit is Luis Urias of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Urias, he's had some spurts this season where he's played good baseball and obviously had fantasy value. And he's also pretty versatile as well. Second, third, and short he qualifies at in fantasy baseball. In the season, 19 homers, 62 RBIs, 67 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 249 average, and a 337 on base in the last couple weeks here for Urias. 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 261 average, and a 300 on base. So right now he's been added in 3% of fantasy leagues in the last few days, and he's still available in 62% of leagues. And now with the injury to Willie Adames, Urias, he's going to be playing each and every day once again here for this Brewer team. So the last few games for him: August 30th at the Giants, 1 for 3 with a rib. September 1st at San Francisco, 1 for 4. September 2nd at San Francisco, 1 for 4 with a run. September 3rd versus the Cardinals, 3 for 4 with a run and a rib. September 4th versus St. Louis, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs and a run. And September 5th versus the Cardinals, 0 for 4. So right now he's been batting first for most of the time since the injury to Willie Adames. And right now I think he definitely can help fantasy owners. He shows pop, he drives in runs, and he's also a table setter for this first place Brewer team. So right now, I think Urias, he's pretty much a decent add this week, especially with the versatility, and that he's going to be playing each and every day once again for this Brewer ball club. The next hit is Elaine Thomas of the Washington Nationals. So the Nationals, another team just like the Chicago Cubs, where they traded everyone and gutted their whole roster last month at the MLB trade deadline. And Lane Thomas, he's been playing pretty good baseball the last couple weeks here on the season though. 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 14 runs, a 235 average, and a 341 on base. But now he's been playing each and every day, is Thomas, since all those trades. And since he's been healthy here on the last couple weeks, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 250 average, and a 298 on base. So right now he's going out there, he's producing. And he's also got 3 home runs in his last 4 games. He's more of a deeper league ad because he's available in 97% of fantasy leagues. But the last few games here for Thomas: August 30th versus Philly, 1 for 4 with an RBI. August 31st versus Philly, 1 for 4 with a run and a rib. September 2nd versus Philly, 2 for 5, a homer and RBI, 2 runs scored. September 3rd versus the Mets, 1 for 4. September 4th in a doubleheader versus the Mets, 3 for 7, a homer, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs. And September 5th versus the Mets, 2 for 5, a homer, an RBI, and 2 runs scored. So he's going out there, he's driving the baseball, and he's getting the job done, especially as a table setter as well for this national team, even though there's not many good hitters left on this roster. But right now, if you in very deep leagues, I think Lane Thomas is a decent ad this week. He's getting the opportunity each and every day, and he's also leading off for this ball club. The next hit is Dorbak of the Boston Red Sox. So Dorbak, he's been on the list a few times this season and recently as well here. So on the season for Bobby Dorbak, 18 home runs, 63 RBIs, 39 runs scored, a stolen base, a 239 average, and a 296 on base percentage. But the last couple weeks for him, he's really hit his stride. 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 343 average, and a 425 on base. So right now, Bobby Dorbak, he's going out there, he's hitting for good average, he's getting on base almost 50% of the time in the last few weeks, and he's producing for this Red Sox team, even though the last few games he's had a couple offers. But August 29th at Cleveland, 1 for 3, a homer and an RBI. August 30th at Tampa, 1 for 3 with a homer and an RBI. August 31st at Tampa, 1 for 4. September 2nd at Tampa, 2 for 4, 2 RBIs. September 3rd versus Cleveland, 0 for 3. September 4th versus Cleveland, 0 for 3. September 5th versus Cleveland, 2 for 5. So right here, Dorbak, he's getting an everyday opportunity like he has pretty much the whole season for this Red Sox team. And it's peaks and valleys, no doubt about it. But he's still a player that can produce and a player that can help fantasy owners. And he qualifies at first and third base. And right now he's available in 71% of fantasy leagues. So if you need a decent hitter at the corner infield position, I think Dorbak is worth an ad this week. The next hit is Austin Hayes. Orioles. So Austin Hayes, over the last few seasons, we've seen flashes of him. And as a guy who had some fantasy value, and on the season, 15 home runs, 51 RBIs, 59 runs scored, a 251 average, and a 297 on base. But the last couple weeks here, he's been red hot. Is Hayes, 2 homers, 8 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 386 average, 413 on base. So right here, he's on one of the worst teams in the league here in Baltimore, but he's getting an everyday opportunity right here with Hayes. Especially yesterday, he led this team from a come-from-behind victory versus the New York Yankees, and they obviously beat the Yankees 2 out of 3 because of Hayes being a contributor here. So the last few games here for Hayes, August 30th, at Toronto, 1 for 4. August 31st at Toronto, 1 for 4, run and a rib. September 1st at Toronto, 1 for 4. September 3rd at the Yankees, 1 for 4. September 4th at the Yankees, 2 for 5 with an RBI. And September 5th at the Yankees, 2 for 5, a homer, an RBI, and 2 runs scored. So right now, Hayes, he's available in a whopping 86% of fantasy leagues. So if you need some power, a guy who's going to hit for decent average, especially the last couple weeks, he's been on fire, like I mentioned. I think he's a good ad. And he's a guy you could go out there right now and put on your roster. And I think he can help you this week, especially with the playoffs starting in most fantasy leagues. The next hit is Leonie Tavares of the Texas Rangers. So Tavares, he's been one of the better pickups in the last few days here. But he's still available as well in 87% of fantasy leagues. So Tavares, he only got called up a few weeks ago here for this Ranger team. And I know the numbers haven't looked great so far. 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 7 stolen bases though, a 135 average and a 189 on base. So right here, he's more of an ad for a run scoring guy and base stealing, because right now he struck out already 38 times in 89 at-bats in the last couple weeks here for Tavares. 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 4 runs scored, and 5 stolen bases. So right now, if you're just targeting and prioritizing, looking for a guy who's going to steal bases for your team, I think Tavares is actually a good ad in that category. But obviously, he's not giving you anything else. He's not hitting the baseball with a low batting average, and he's not getting on base. But right now, he's so good of a base stealer, it's hard not to turn down a guy like that, because if he gets on base more, obviously, he's going to get more stolen bases. That's just the nature of the game, because he's one of the faster prospects coming up in baseball. And right now, he's been stealing bases. August 30th, the Rockies, 2 for 3, a homer and RBI. August 31st versus the Rockies, 1 for 3, a homer and RBI, 2 stolen bases. September 1st versus the Rockies, 2 for 5, a run, 2 RBIs, a stolen base. September 3rd at the Angels, 0 for 4. September 4th at the Angels, 2 for 4 with a run. September 5th at the Angels, 1 for 5. So right now, Tavares, if you need stolen bases, I would go out there and get him. He's batting 1st to 9th for this Texas Ranger team. And right now, like I mentioned in other videos, for the Texas Rangers, it's all about the kids right now and seeing what they could do. And right now, Tavares is getting an opportunity. And if you want to get stolen bases and some runs scored, I would give him a shot here. The next hit is Eric Haas of the Detroit Tigers. So Haas, he went on the injured list a few weeks ago, but he's back earlier than I thought right now is Haas. And on the season, he's put together a pretty good season, especially for catcher terms in fantasy baseball. 20 home runs, 54 RBIs, 41 runs scored, a 237 average, and a 288 on base in the last couple weeks here for Haas since he returned. 1 homer, 5 RBIs, a run scored, 226 average, and a 242 on base. So obviously Haas, he's a free swinger. He's a hacker up there for this Tiger team, but he's available in 60% of fantasy leagues. And we know catch is one of the worst positions in fantasy baseball. And if you could go out there and get a guy who's got 20 home runs and he could play catcher and outfield for fantasy baseball, and he's pretty much playing each and every day because of the outfield as well, he's definitely a guy we'll go out there and get. So the last few games here for Haas. August 30th versus the Twins, 1-for-4. August 31st versus Oakland, 1-for-4. September 1st versus Oakland, 0-for-4. September 2nd versus Oakland, 1-for-5. September 4th at Cincinnati, 1-for-3 with a homer and 3 RBIs. And September 5th at Cincinnati, 1-for-3 with an RBI. So him and the Tigers open up a 3-game set at the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I could see Haas hitting for more power and showing some damage as well in this series. The Pirates, they're a poor pitching team, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Haas has a pretty big 3-game series coming up. And the final hitter I will look to add this week's Kevin Pillar of the New York Mets. Kevin Pillar, another pretty good signing this offseason for the New York Mets. I feel like the smaller signings, like a VR, a PR, and even a Taijuan Walker until the last couple weeks, have been good signings for this ball club. So on the season for Pillar, 14 homers, 39 RBIs, 35 runs scored, a 224 average, and a 265 on base. So obviously he's not showing much on the season overall, but the last couple weeks he's come up in big situations, and he's really contributing for this Met team. And now with Brandon Nimmo on the injured list, I think Pillar is pretty much going to be the everyday center fielder or close to it for this Met team. So the last couple weeks, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 7 runs scored, a 409 batting average, and a 480 on base. And right now, Pillar, he's available in 97% of fantasy leagues. With this guy, he's going to show power, he's going to steal some bases, and he's batting anywhere from 5th to 7th right now in this Met lineup. But like I mentioned, he's going to play every day, especially with Nimmo on the injured list. So the last few games here for Pillar, August 29th, versus Washington, 1-for-4 with a run. September 3rd at Washington, 3-for-5, a run, 2 RBIs. September 4th in a doubleheader at Washington, 1-for-4, a homer, 2 RBIs. And September 5th at Washington, 2-for-4, a homer, 4 RBIs, and a stolen base. So right now, the last 2 games for him have been big ball games, no doubt about it, for Pillar, with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs. So right now, he's going to get an opportunity. And if you want to give a guy a chance like that in deeper leagues, I definitely would, because he's going to show some things, in my opinion, for this Met team and for fantasy owners. So those are a few hitters I look to add here in Week 22 with a fantasy baseball season as the playoffs start in many fantasy leagues this week.